They thought they could erase her in the middle of the biggest vote in company history. They thought replacing her with a polished pawn would be the end of it. But within hours, 4 states were choking on stalled supply lines, and she was the only one who could restart them. The trucks sat frozen on highways, the warehouses locked down, the cargo ships waited at ports like beached whales, and somewhere in Denver, she sat in her apartment, watching the news coverage explode across every network, her phone lighting up with desperate calls she had no intention of answering. Not yet. They wanted to play games with her life. She'd show them what real power looked like. Claire Maddox had built Kestrel freight systems from the ground up for 12 years, and they chose to destroy her at 11:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, right in the middle of the most important board vote in company history. The mahogany conference table stretched like a runway between her and the exit, its polished surface reflecting the faces of 11 board members who wouldn't meet her eyes. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Denver high-rise, the Rocky Mountains stood indifferent to the carnage happening in this room. Claire kept her hands steady on her portfolio, watching Chairman Richard Brennan's mouth move as he delivered the killing blow. Effective immediately. We're restructuring the operations department. Ms. Maddox, your services are no longer required. The words landed between the champagne flutes still bubbling from their premature celebration of the $1.2 billion acquisition vote. She'd orchestrated every detail of that merger, mapped every supply route, calculated every efficiency gain. The projections on the screen behind Brennan, her projections still glowed with promise. Claire didn't flinch. 12 years in logistics had taught her that the most dangerous moments were the quiet ones, when everything seemed to stop moving, like now, as CFO Margaret Torres shuffled papers to avoid looking at her, as General Counsel David Park suddenly found his phone fascinating, as Brennan's assistant already stood by the door with a cardboard box they'd packed her desk before telling her. "The vote," Claire said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade through packaging tape. "You're firing me in the middle of the acquisition vote." "The vote passed 8-3, Brennan said, adjusting his Hermes tie. "Your input was no longer necessary for the final tally." Your input was no longer necessary. After she'd spent 6 months negotiating with unions, smoothing relations with state regulators, personally visiting every distribution center from Colorado to California to ensure buy-in, after she'd rebuilt their entire routing system from scratch, turning Kestrel from a regional player into a logistics powerhouse. Who's taking over operations? The question came out measured, professional, inside. Her mind was already racing through implications. The insulin delivery contracts, the fresh produce routes that required precise timing, the holiday inventory buildup starting in 3 weeks. Trent Calloway will assume the role of Chief Operations Officer, effective immediately. Trent Calloway, the golden boy from corporate communications who couldn't tell a bill of lading from a shopping list. The same Trent Calloway she'd seen having dinner with Orion Logistics executives at the Brown Palace Hotel last month, when he was supposedly at a family emergency in Phoenix. Claire stood slowly, gathering her portfolio with deliberate grace. Every eye in the room tracked her movement, waiting for the explosion, the tears, the pleading. She gave them nothing. Her navy suit remained perfectly pressed, her expression carved from marble. "I'll need 24 hours to transition critical accounts," she said. "That won't be necessary. Mr. Calloway has been fully briefed." Fully briefed. Claire almost laughed. Did they brief him on the temperamental refrigeration units in the Sacramento warehouse? The handshake deal with the Teamsters that kept the Portland routes running, the personal relationships she'd built with every dispatcher from here to Houston. "My benefits. Will terminate at midnight, per company policy. HR will send the COBRA information to your personal email." Midnight. Her sister Emma's liver transplant was scheduled for Thursday. The insurance approval had taken months. Without continuous coverage, they'd have to restart the entire process. Emma didn't have months. Claire walked toward the door, her heels clicking against the marble floor in perfect rhythm. The assistant held out the cardboard box. She didn't take it. "Ms. Maddox," Brennan called out as she reached for the door handle. "Your company laptop and access badges." She pulled the laptop from her bag, set it on the credenza by the door. The access badges followed, each one landing with a small plastic click. The executive parking pass, the data center keycard, but not everything. not the authentication codes for the Hawkchain routing matrix that ran on servers she'd personally configured. The system she'd built on her own time, with her own resources, before implementing it at Kestrel under a handshake agreement they'd never formalized. 12 years, she said, hand on the door handle, her back still to them. I gave you 12 years. The severance package is generous, Torres finally spoke up, guilt leaking through her corporate armor. 3 months' salary, plus. Keep it! Claire opened the door and walked out, leaving behind the box, the pity, and 11 people who had no idea what they'd just done. The elevator was waiting. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of Trent Calloway strutting down the hallway toward the boardroom, his smile as wide as the Colorado sky. Her phone buzzed, a notification from the Hawkchain system. Authentication renewal required in 6 hours. She dismissed it and pressed the lobby button. They thought they'd won. They thought she'd disappear quietly, gratefully even, with their severance check and their Cobra paperwork. Claire stepped out into the Denver sunshine and walked toward her car. Already calculating. 6 hours until the system needed her codes. 6 hours for them to realize what they'd thrown away. 6 hours before 4 states learned what happened when you carved out the heart of a supply chain and expected it to keep beating. She didn't look back at the Kestrel building. There was nothing left there worth seeing. The coffee shop across from Kestrel Tower had become Claire's observation post. She sat in the corner booth, laptop open to news feeds, watching Trent Calloway's first day unfold like a slow-motion train wreck. Through the window, she could see him arriving at 2:15 p.m. 3 hours late for a role that required 5 a.m. starts. His Tesla Model S gleamed in the executive lot, parked crooked across 2 spaces. The man who was supposed to manage 800 trucks across 4 states couldn't even park 1 car properly. Claire's phone buzzed. Maya Ross, her former regional manager in Sacramento. Jesus, Claire, he just sent out a company-wide email with Comic Sans Fond, Comic Sans. Says we're pivoting to synergistic logistics solutions. What the hell does that even mean? It means he's copying Orion's mission statement, Claire replied, remembering the presentation she'd seen on Trent's screen during a meeting last quarter. Word for word, probably. There's more. He's already scheduled meetings with our biggest accounts for tomorrow. Wants to reassess partnership dynamics. Claire knew what that meant. Hand over client lists, reveal pricing structures, expose the vulnerabilities in their network. Everything Orion needed to poach Kestrel's business. Maya, I need you to do something for me. Check the routing permissions on the Hawkchain system. A pause. Still showing your credentials as primary admin. His name's been added, but... Claire, he doesn't have master access. Legal never transferred the authorization. It's still running under your personal encryption keys. Of course it was, because Claire had built Hawkchain through her own LLC, Maddox Infrastructure, during nights and weekends when Kestrel was too cheap to invest in proper logistics software. She'd integrated it into their system as a favor, with a handshake agreement and nothing more. Brennan had promised they'd formalize it eventually. Eventually never came. Her laptop chimed. 3 p.m., 3 hours until authentication renewal. She pulled up another window Trent's LinkedIn profile. Updated an hour ago. Excited to announce my new role as Chief Operations Officer at Kestrel Freight Systems, ready to transform the logistics landscape with innovative solutions and strategic partnerships. The comments were already flowing in. Congratulations from Orion executives, not even trying to hide it. Another text, this time from Marcus Washington, her contact at the Denver Transportation Authority. Your replacement just called asking how to access the freight priority lanes. Didn't know they needed special permits. Is this guy for real? Claire didn't respond. She was watching something more interesting on her screen, internal emails Maya had forwarded. Trent was already sending route data to external addresses, not Orion's corporate emails, but private Gmail accounts that wouldn't trigger security protocols. Sloppy, arrogant, perfect. She opened another laptop, her personal one, and pulled up the Hawkchain admin panel. Every truck in the fleet appeared as a green dot on the map. Denver to Dallas, Seattle to San Diego, thousands of moving pieces in perfect synchronization, the refrigerated units carrying insulin to hospitals, the just-in-time deliveries keeping assembly lines running, the hazmat vehicles with their carefully regulated routes. All of it flowing through her system, her code, her design. At 3:30 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number, but she recognized the nervous breathing before he even spoke. "Claire, it's Trent. Hey, so, quick question about the Saturday routes. I don't work for Kestrel anymore. Trent, you should have been fully briefed. Remember?" "Right, yeah, of course. It's just, the system is asking for some kind of authentication. The IT guy said you might know. Good luck with your new role." She hung up and blocked the number. Then she opened her code editor and began typing. Not malicious code, she wasn't a criminal, just a simple adjustment to the authentication protocol. Instead of auto-renewing with stored credentials, the system would now require manual input. Her manual input, every 6 hours. By 4 p.m., Trent had tried calling from 3 different numbers. She blocked them all. Maya texted again. "He's in full panic mode. Just saw him screaming at it. Says the system must be broken." It wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed. The beauty of the Hawkchain system was its integration. It didn't just track vehicles. It managed driver schedules, fuel purchasing, maintenance windows, customer billing, regulatory compliance. Pull that thread, and the entire tapestry would unravel. At 4:45 p.m., Claire packed up her laptops and drove home. She had a call with Emma's doctor at 5. Needed to figure out how to pay for the surgery without insurance. The severance package she'd rejected would have covered it, but taking their money meant signing their non-compete, meant letting them win. As she pulled into her apartment complex, she noticed a news van at the Kestrel building on the traffic report. Something about delivery delays. She turned off the radio. Trent Calloway thought he could walk into her life's work, hand it over to competitors, and emerge as a corporate hero. The board thought they could discard her like damaged freight. Her phone showed 5:58 p.m., 2 minutes until authentication renewal. Claire poured herself a glass of wine, opened her laptop, and watched the countdown timer on the Hawkchain admin panel. 5:59 p.m. She took a sip of wine. 6 p.m. The authentication window appeared. She had 60 seconds to enter the code before the system would lock. She let it tick down. 40 seconds, 30, 20. Her phone exploded with calls. The Kestrel main line, Brennan's personal cell, Torres, Park, even the security desk. 10 seconds. She closed the laptop. Somewhere in Denver, a logistics empire built on stolen plans and corporate betrayal was about to learn what happened when you tried to steal from the person who held all the keys, and Claire Maddox intended to make them pay for every second of it. The first truck stopped moving at 6:01 p.m. on Interstate 70 just outside of Vail. The driver, confused by his suddenly frozen routing tablet, pulled over to call dispatch. By 6:05 p.m., dispatch couldn't answer, their screens had gone dark. Claire watched it all unfold from her apartment, news channels multiplying across her laptop screen like cells dividing. The local Denver affiliate broke the story first. Breaking news: major shipping delays reported across Colorado as Kestrel Freight Systems experiences technical difficulties. Technical difficulties. Such a polite way to describe a complete system collapse. Her personal phone, the number only 6 people had rang. Emma. "Claire, the hospital just called. They said there might be an issue with the insurance verification." "Don't worry about it. Focus on resting for Thursday." "But they said..." "I've got it handled. Trust me." She ended the call and turned back to the screens. The Hawkchain authentication window had closed, locking the entire system into standby mode. Every truck's routing tablet showed the same message: "Authentication required. Contact system administrator." The problem was, Claire was the system administrator, the only one with root access, the only one who knew that the authentication wasn't just a password, it was a rotating cipher based on an algorithm she'd never documented, pulling variables from weather patterns, traffic data, and commodity prices. Even if they brought in the best hackers in the world, they'd need weeks to crack it. By 6:30 p.m., the situation had escalated. The news channels showed aerial footage of trucks stopped on highways, lined up at way stations with nowhere to go. The refrigerated units carrying temperature-sensitive medications had triggered emergency protocols. their drivers frantically calling hospitals to warn about potential delays. Claire's secured laptop chimed, an encrypted message from someone using a Kestrel IT account. Name your price. She didn't respond. At 7 p.m., the story went national. CNN picked it up first. Supply chain crisis, 4 states affected as major logistics company suffers system failure. The reporter stood in front of a warehouse in Phoenix where 300 trucks sat idle. Sources tell us this appears to be a catastrophic failure of Kestrel's proprietary routing system, affecting not just trucking but rail connections, warehouse operations, and port scheduling. We're talking about millions of dollars in goods sitting motionless. Her phone buzzed. Marcus from the Transportation Authority. Claire, what the hell is happening? We've got pharmaceutical deliveries stuck, fresh food spoiling, manufacturing plants about to shut down. The governor's asking questions. Not my problem anymore, Marcus. Come on, Claire, people could get hurt. She'd thought about that, which is why she'd timed it perfectly. The insulin deliveries had gone out this morning, patients had their medications. The critical supplies were already at their destinations. What was stuck now was profitable, but not life-threatening consumer electronics, clothing, processed foods, the kind of shipments that hurt corporate bottom lines, not human lives. At 7:45 p.m., someone leaked internal footage to the media. Trent Calloway in the Kestrel Situation Room, screaming at IT staff, his face red, sweat staining his designer shirt. Just override it. How hard can it be to reset a fucking password? The IT manager's response was barely audible but devastating. Sir, we don't own the base code. It's licensed from an external vendor. What vendor? Maddox Infrastructure LLC? The look on Trent's face when he heard her name, Claire, rewound the footage just to watch it again. By 8 p.m., Kestrel's stock price had dropped 12% in after-hours trading. The acquisition deal, the $1.2 billion crown jewel, included a clause about maintaining operational capacity. If Kestrel couldn't prove system stability within 48 hours, the buyers could walk away, or worse, demand a massive discount. Her laptop showed 17 missed video calls from the Kestrel boardroom. She declined them all. At 8:30 p.m., a different kind of call came through. Not Kestrel's executives or IT team, but from a number she recognized, Jennifer Walsh, the investigative reporter from the Denver Post, who'd been digging into corporate corruption for years. Ms. Maddox, I'm hearing interesting things about the timing of your termination and this system failure. No comment. I'm also hearing that Trent Calloway has been in communication with Orion Logistics, that he might have been sharing proprietary information. If you have any evidence... Claire hung up but saved the number. Not yet. The chess pieces weren't all in position yet. By 9 p.m., the real casualties started appearing. The warehouse workers sent home without pay because there was nothing to load. The drivers stuck hundreds of miles from home, their electronic logs frozen, unable to legally continue driving. The small businesses waiting for inventory that wouldn't come. Claire felt a twinge of guilt, then remembered Brennan's face when he'd fired her, remembered Torres shuffling papers while her sister's life hung in the balance, remembered Trent's smug smile in the hallway. Her authentication app showed another window opening at midnight. 6 hours for them to understand what they'd lost. 6 hours for them to realize she wasn't just the operations chief, she was the entire operation. At 10 p.m., Emma called again. Claire, are you watching the news? Your company is all over it. Not my company anymore. What happened this morning? They decided they didn't need me anymore, so I'm showing them exactly how much they don't need me. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, is this why you always told me to document everything to own your own work? Smart girl. The insurance thing is that going to be okay. Claire looked at her laptop, at the authentication window that would open again in 2 hours, at the 18 missed calls from Brennan, at the text from Maya saying the board had called an emergency meeting for 11 p.m. Yeah, it's going to be more than okay. By 11 p.m., 4 states were effectively paralyzed. The morning news cycles were already prepared. The financial markets in Asia watching nervously. Kestrel Freight Systems, a company that moved $40 million in goods daily, had been reduced to a collection of expensive, motionless assets. And it had only been 5 hours. The encrypted message arrived at 11:45 p.m., Just as Claire was preparing for the midnight authentication window, Maya Ross, risking everything to stay loyal. "You need to see this. Trent's been busy." The attachment was a forwarded email chain. Claire's blood turned cold as she read it. Trent hadn't just been sharing routing data with Orion, he'd been systematically transferring Kestrel's entire operational playbook, customer contracts, pricing models, driver databases, even the predictive algorithms Claire had developed for seasonal demand fluctuations. Everything except the Hawkchain core code, which he couldn't access. The timestamps told the story. The transfers had started 3 weeks ago, long before Claire's termination. This wasn't opportunistic corporate espionage, it was premeditated. The final email in the chain, sent at 10:30 p.m. tonight, made her stomach turn. From T. Calloway at private email, com to strategic acquisitions, Orion log, com subject re-Phoenix package. Once we resolve the current technical situation, I'll have full admin access. The board is desperate. They'll give me whatever I need to fix this. By Friday, you'll have everything we discussed. The Phoenix routes, the government contracts, all of it. Phoenix routes, the medical supply corridors Claire had spent 3 years building relationships to secure, the contracts that delivered medications to VA hospitals across the Southwest. Her phone rang. Jennifer Walsh from the Denver Post again. "Ms. Maddox, I'm sorry to call so late, but I've received some interesting documents about Orion Logistics preparing to announce a major expansion into medical logistics. The timing seems... Check your email in 30 seconds." Claire forwarded the entire email chain to Walsh, then added 3 more recipients: the FBI's Corporate Fraud Division, the SEC's Insider Trading Unit, and the Department of Transportation's Inspector General. At midnight exactly, the authentication window opened. This time, Claire entered the code, keeping the system running, but she added something new, a transparency protocol, that would log every action Trent took in the system, every file he accessed, every change he made, and automatically back up to an external server she controlled. Her phone immediately lit up with a call from Brennan. "Thank God. Claire, the system's back online. We need to talk about..." "No, you need to listen. Your new operations chief has been selling your company to Orion for 3 weeks. Check your email." She hung up and forwarded him the same chain she'd sent to Walsh. Within minutes, Maya reported chaos in the Kestrel building. Security had been called to the executive floor. Trent's badge had been deactivated while he was still in the building, trapping him in the server room where he'd been trying to download backup files. At 12:30 a.m., Claire's phone rang again. This time it was David Park, Kestrel's general counsel. "Claire, we need to discuss the situation with Mr. Calloway. It appears there's been significant misconduct." "Misconduct? That's what you're calling corporate espionage. We're prepared to offer you a consulting contract to help us through this transition, full benefits restoration, backdated to avoid any coverage gaps. Emma's surgery. They knew exactly what leverage they had. I want more than that. Name your price." "I don't want money. I want ownership, full rights to the Hawkchain system, since you never formalized our agreement anyway. And I want it in writing that Maddox Infrastructure LLC owns all derivative works, all improvements, all associated intellectual property." Silence on the other end. "Mr. Park, the next authentication window is at 6 a.m. I suggest you have those papers ready before then." At 1 a.m., the story broke online. Jennifer Walsh's exclusive fired executive reveals corporate espionage scheme at major logistics firm. The article included screenshots of Trent's emails, technical diagrams showing how he'd planned to transfer Kestrel's infrastructure to Orion, and a timeline that suggested the board might have been complicit or criminally negligent. By 2 a.m., Orion's emergency PR team was in full damage control. Their stock futures were plummeting in Asian markets. The FBI had confirmed they were opening an investigation. Claire received a text from an unknown number. "This is Margaret Torres. I'm sorry. We didn't know about Calloway. Some of us tried to warn Brennan that you were irreplaceable. He wouldn't listen." Claire didn't respond. Apologies wouldn't pay for Emma's surgery. At 3 a.m., another text, this time from Marcus at the Transportation Authority. "The governor wants to give you a commendation for exposing the Orion scheme. Also, there's a federal contract opening up for regional medical supply distribution. Might be perfect for a company like, say, Maddox Infrastructure LLC. For the first time since her firing 16 hours ago, Claire smiled. At 4 a.m., security footage from Kestrel leaked somehow showing Trent being escorted out in handcuffs, FBI agents carrying boxes of evidence. The footage also showed something interesting in the background: several board members' offices being sealed off. Maya called at 5 a.m. "Claire, you're not going to believe this. 3 board members just resigned. Turns out they had stock positions in Orion. The whole thing was a setup to crash Kestrel's value before the acquisition, then have Orion sweep in and buy the pieces." "Who's left?" "Torres took over as emergency chair. Park's trying to salvage the acquisition deal. And Brennan's lawyers just showed up." At 5:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the next authentication window, David Park called again. "The documents are ready. Full ownership of Hawkchain transfers to Maddox Infrastructure LLC. We're also prepared to offer a 5-year licensing agreement, paying you $3 million annually for exclusive use. Send them to my attorney. If everything's in order, I'll maintain system stability through the acquisition." "Thank you, Claire. And for what it's worth." "It's worth nothing. David, you all sat there and let them throw me away. Send the contracts." At 6 a.m., Claire entered the authentication code. The green dots on her screen resumed their dance across the map. 4 states breathed again. Trucks rolled. Warehouses hummed. The supply chain that fed a nation resumed its pulse. But now it beat to her rhythm, not theirs. Jennifer Walsh sat across from Claire at the Metropole Hotel's restaurant, her recorder placed discreetly between their coffee cups. It was 9 a.m. on Wednesday, 36 hours since the firing, and the reporter looked like she'd been up all night chasing leads. "Your story's gone viral. 3 million views and climbing. The SEC's opened a formal investigation into both Kestrel and Orion, but you haven't given any interviews. Why me? Why now?" Claire slid a folder across the table. "Because you're about to get the exclusive that ends this properly." Walsh opened it, her eyes widening. Screenshots of board communications dating back 6 months. Brennan discussing how to minimize Claire's equity position before the acquisition. Torres calculating how much they'd save by eliminating her role. Park drafting termination scenarios that would prevent her from claiming intellectual property rights. They planned your firing 6 months ago. The moment the acquisition talks started, they knew Hawkchain would triple the company's value, but they also knew I owned it, so they waited until the last possible moment when the deal was signed but not closed to cut me out. But they didn't know about your authentication protocols. They didn't know a lot of things. Claire pulled out her phone, showing Walsh another document. "This is the original development agreement for Hawkchain. See the signature line never signed by Kestrel. Just my company, Maddox Infrastructure. Legally, they've been using my system without a formal license for 2 years." Walsh's fingers flew across her tablet, taking notes. "This is bigger than corporate espionage. This is securities fraud. The board deliberately hid a massive operational risk from the buyers." "Check the timing of their stock sales," Claire added. 3 board members sold significant positions 2 weeks ago, right after they knew they were firing me but before the public would learn about the Hawkchain vulnerability. "Insider trading." Walsh looked up. "Claire, this could bring down the entire board." "Not the entire board. Torres and 2 others voted against my termination. They're clean. The rest," Claire shrugged. "They made their choice." Her phone buzzed. A text from her attorney. "Contract signed by Kestrel. 3 cents annually for 5 years, plus immediate healthcare coverage restoration backdated to Monday. Wire transfer for first-year payment initiating now. $3 million. More than enough for Emma's surgery, for her recovery, for anything else her sister might need." Walsh noticed her smile. "Good news. The best kind, justice that pays well." At 10 a.m., they moved to Walsh's office at the Denver Post. The reporter wanted to verify every document, cross-reference every claim. Claire respected that. Truth needed to be bulletproof. While Walsh worked, Claire took a call from Marcus at the Transportation Authority. "That federal contract I mentioned, it's yours if you want it. Medical supply distribution for the entire Southwest region, 5-year term, guaranteed minimums. You'd need to scale up fast, but with your reputation after this week. Send me the RFP. Maddox Infrastructure will submit a bid." Claire, between that contract and what Kestrel's paying you, you're looking at building a serious logistics company. You sure you want to compete with your old employer? She looked out Walsh's window at the Kestrel building 4 blocks away. I'm not competing with them. Marcus, I'm replacing them. At noon, Walsh's editor joined them, bringing lunch and a legal team. The Post wanted to run the story for Thursday morning's edition physical paper and digital simultaneously. Full front page, with supporting documents online. We need to give Kestrel a chance to respond, the editor said. Claire pulled up her email. They've been responding all morning. She showed them 17 increasingly desperate messages from Brennan, ranging from legal threats to begging. The last one, sent at 11:47 a.m., was just 2 words, "Please, Claire." That's not really a corporate response, the editor noted. Then call David Park. He's the only one left there with any authority. While they made calls, Claire's phone rang. Emma. The hospital just called. Insurance approved everything, they even expedited it. Surgery's still set for tomorrow morning. I told you I'd handle it. Claire. What did you do? I owned my worth, finally. At 2 p.m., Park called the Post's legal team directly. His statement was brief. Kestrel Freight Systems acknowledges serious lapses in corporate governance and is cooperating fully with all investigations. We have terminated several executives and are implementing new oversight measures. Our operations continue normally thanks to our partnership with Maddox Infrastructure, LLC. Partnership, not vendor, not contractor, partnership. Claire's attorney called immediately after. Did you see what Park just did? He's positioning you as essential to Kestrel's survival. Every potential client will know they can't function without you. Good. Let them know. At 3 p.m., an unexpected visitor arrived at the Post, Margaret Torres. She looked exhausted. Her usually perfect composure cracked. Claire, I need 5 minutes. Walsh started to object, but Claire nodded. They stepped into a conference room. I'm interim CEO, Torres said without preamble. The board that's left voted an hour ago. Brennan's out, facing SEC charges. Calloway's been arrested. 3 board members are under investigation. Congratulations on your promotion. I don't want congratulations. I want to apologize. I should have fought harder against your termination. I knew it was wrong. But you didn't. No, I was a coward. And now I'm running a company that's hemorrhaging clients and facing federal investigation. Torres pulled out a folder. This is a formal offer, not consulting, full C-suite position, Chief Innovation Officer, reporting directly to me, $7 million base, plus equity. Claire looked at the offer, then handed it back unsigned. I have my own company now. We could acquire Maddox Infrastructure. Name your price. It's not for sale, but I'll honor our licensing agreement. You'll have stable operations through the acquisition. After that, Claire stood. After that, we'll see who builds the better company. At 4 p.m., Walsh's story was ready. Claire read through it once more, confirming every detail. The headline had changed. The executive who held 4 states hostage and why she was right. It would run in 12 hours. By Thursday afternoon, while Emma was in recovery from successful surgery, the entire logistics industry would know Claire Maddox's name, not as the fired operations chief, but as the CEO of Maddox Infrastructure, the company that controlled the code that moved America's goods. Her phone showed one final message from Brennan, "You've destroyed everything I built." She typed back, "No, I destroyed everything we built. Now I get to build something that's actually mine." At 5 p.m., Claire left the Post building and drove to the hospital to be with Emma. Tomorrow, her sister would get her new liver. Tomorrow, the business world would wake up to a new reality. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, she'd sit with the only family she had left and know that she'd won more than just a corporate battle. She'd won her freedom. The emergency board meeting convened at 7 a.m. Thursday in Kestrel's glass tower. While Claire sat in the surgical waiting room 3 miles away, Emma had gone into surgery at 6:30 a.m., and Claire had promised to be there when she woke up. But she could still watch the corporate theater unfold through Maya's updates and the live financial news coverage. They're panicking, Maya texted. The acquisition buyers just issued an ultimatum. Either Kestrel proves operational stability by noon, or they're invoking the failure clause. The failure clause would let the buyers walk away with a $100 million penalty paid by Kestrel money the company didn't have after their stock crash. Claire's laptop showed the authentication window 2 hours until the next renewal. She let them sweat. At 8 a.m., Torres called directly. "Claire, we need to discuss the transition." "I'm at the hospital. My sister's in surgery." "I'm sorry, we can talk later." "No, let's talk now. You have something you need to say." Torres's voice cracked slightly. "The buyers are demanding proof that Hawkchain will remain stable. They want to meet the system owner." "They want to meet me?" "Yes, they've made it a condition of the deal. If you don't show up, if you don't guarantee continued service, the acquisition fails."